ladies and gentlemen. The Eurodomo crew and passengers in your report to us as the CCTV is in operation. We do see anything suspicious untoward.
Newcastle United looking to pick up the first Premier League win in over a month and score their first goal from open play in over 6.5 hours here today at Chelsea. Great day down here in the capital, but Newcastle United go into this game probably under a little bit of tension in terms of trying to stop the rot. It's been a tough run for Newcastle. They've slipped in the bottom half of the table and they need to get a result here today. A draw would be fantastic if you offered me that now, but you never know what can happen. Newcastle, if they apply themselves, Eddie Howe said it the other day, when this team is firing on all cylinders, they can beat anybody in the Premier League, so you have to take that on board. Unfortunately, they're not firing on all cylinders at the moment, so there may be a couple of tweaks into today's team, but ultimately for Newcastle, they've got to start showing they are the team that, qualified for the Champions League a couple of years ago, because if not, that's going to be a distant memory for Newcastle fans. And Eddie Howe really, going into this season, knew that the demand or the aim from the top of the club, not from the supporters, from the top of the club, was to get into the Champions League. It was spoken about openly. At the minute, they're a little bit off the pace on that. So tough game here today against Chelsea. Chelsea played in Greece in the Europa Conference League last week, but they were able to rotate the team, and I expect a completely different Chelsea lineup today with the return of Cole Palmer, giving Newcastle a very tricky assignment here in the capital. Disappointment for Newcastle United here today at Stamford Bridge on a day where there were some positives. We can't get too downhearted about this. Newcastle at least took the game to Chelsea at times this afternoon, but ultimately the key moments, they went missing, and obviously falling behind in the first half was disastrous from a defensive point of view. Fabian Schär being shown a clean pair of heels by Pedro Neto, who crosses, and Jackson just taps home with Dan Burn nowhere to be seen. Newcastle 1-0 down. You feared the worst at that point, but Isak got Newcastle back into the game and they went in at half-time level. You thought it was going to take a big, impression at the start of the second half for Newcastle to win this game, but sadly it was Chelsea who started really impressively in the second period, with Cole Palmer scoring he was unchallenged basically, Isak losing the ball and then Cole Palmer running free and just striking home, and that was enough to win the game. Isak did have an opportunity where he twisted into the box but didn't cross it, didn't shoot, and Eddie Howe was pretty livid at the time. He calmed down a little bit down there in the press conference, I have to say, but at the time I don't think I've ever seen Eddie Howe as frustrated as that. Eddie Howe in his press conference, heartened by aspects of the display, felt that it was a strong performance in some places, and he hopes that he can take that on to the Carabao Cup on Wednesday. But Newcastle are going to need a big effort now to get through in that competition. If they play offensively like they did today and have that clinical touch, then it's going to be a much better night. But defensively, they just cannot afford to do that, and that decision not to get a centre back in the summer is beginning to ring true here for Newcastle in the Premier League. So Newcastle United lost 2-1 at Chelsea. A couple of reflections from London before we head back. Disappointing, obviously, the results today, but as I stated, pretty much in the aftermath of the game, that I thought going down there today was going to be tough for Newcastle. So the fact that Newcastle put up a fight, I thought there was a lot of positives to take from this game, even in defeat. And I think that's the way Eddie Howe will be looking at it. Obviously, yes, there is things to criticise, the way Newcastle defended. I think overall Newcastle was sloppy in terms of the 2 goals. But for me, when you look back at this game and analyse it, it was much better for Newcastle going forwards. I think the fact that we scored a goal from open play was a big positive. Newcastle created more than one chance in the game, which they struggled to do against Brighton. So really, you don't want to say only lose 2-1, but you know, against the Chelsea team, who I think are going to be pushing for the top 4 of the Premier League this season, I think they will probably win something as well. The quality the players have got, the system they play, the way they rotate everything, all points to a very good side. So I don't think it was a disgrace losing the way Newcastle did, but I think ultimately for Eddie Howe, he will lean on the positives. He's now got to dust everybody down, get them ready for that game against Chelsea in the Carabao Cup. Same opponents, won't be the same team. I'm pretty sure they will make quite a few changes in that game, and whoever they put on the pitch is going to be tough for Newcastle, because I think really today showed you where they're going. Chelsea are going in a positive direction. Newcastle, for me, can be going in a positive direction as well, but I think they're a bit more of a transitional stage. I think they've still got a lot of decent signings that they have to make, and today defensively they fell short. So it's going to be tough this season. I think that at the start of the season everyone was talking about Champions League. That is going to be a big ask. I don't know if Newcastle will revise their ambitions. I don't know. That's something I'm throwing open there for people to discuss. Top 4 was always going to be a big push. They're sitting in 12th now, going in November. That doesn't seem as realistic as it once did. But I suppose Newcastle winning a trophy kind of ends all that talk anyway. But we've been talking about trying to win a trophy for a long time now, so it all puts the emphasis on the game against Chelsea at St James Park. Makes that emphasis even stronger going into that game. So lots to discuss, lots to think about, but ultimately today Newcastle just fell short. The other big talking point in the game was Alexander Isak's opportunity when he twisted his way into the box and got in. Basically, I think he got caught between 2 minds, whether a cross or shoot. He ended up doing neither. It left Eddie Howe absolutely furious in the dugout. He had calmed down a little bit in the press conference afterwards when I asked him his views on it. He's talking about it being a breakneck speed, 100 mile an hour, easy to criticise, easy to analyse, but I think really Alexander Isak should do better in that situation. He's an experienced player. He knows Joe Linton's capable of scoring goals as well. Should have cut it back, but easy to say now. And for Newcastle though, ending that goal drought I think was a big plus. Eddie Howe spoke about the team going in the right direction. That was his words after the game. And yeah, I kind of believe him. I don't think it's time to press the panic button, if there is such a thing in football. I think really Eddie Howe has been in worse situations than this at Newcastle. He's obviously inherited a Newcastle team that was staring relegation in the face. He's had other bad runs worse than this. So I think you just have to almost trust them, trust the process, and hopefully Newcastle will get to the other side of this. And I think beating Chelsea in the Carabao Cup would go a long way to keeping Eddie Howe satisfied, and it would set that Arsenal game up on Saturday very nicely. If they do everything they did today offensively, then hopefully the chances will start dropping for Newcastle more, and they'll start taking them a lot more. Defensively, a lot will improve, no doubt about that. But ultimately, for Newcastle United, it's a 2-1 defeat today here in London, but it's definitely a philosophical one. It wasn't as the hammering that people feared. It was a disappointing defeat in many ways, but as I say, I think there's a lot of people will be trying to be philosophical about it in many ways.